And he said, all right, you're going to be the first person I fire. And I'm like, well, that hurt. But he goes, look, man, you're taking away opportunity for other people that do want to learn the trade. You're taking that away from them. And he said, and it's only fair that you're the first person I fire. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to work so hard that you're going to regret that. And so we were at, I think it was Mansfield at the time. This was after we had Medical City. Mm-hmm. And I was running around. I had a radio and stuff. And they said, hey, Ronnie Schreiber didn't come to job sites, right? Unless there's problems or there's problems. And
he came to talk to me out at Fidelity after I first started. I'd been there about 3 weeks. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so it's like when you have the president of operations walking around your job site, it's like people are calling each other on the radios, like make sure everything's picked up. Oh, yeah. It's a big deal.
No, nobody be sleeping in the Connex.
Nobody's here. Yeah, so you would know, right? You just have scouts up on the 10th floor, just like Brandt truck pulling in.
I know.
3 o'clock.
Tradesmen built America. Not policymakers or desk jockeys, but hardworking, blue-collared men and women. Join me, Roger Wakefield, on conversations with some of the nation's most successful skilled laborers. This is the Trade Talks. So when did you know you did not want to work out in the field forever?
See, I started in a trade in 2003. And back when I came from a small town and you really didn't have many options, right? You either go to the oil field, you could go build radio towers for cell phones, or you could get into the plumbing trade. I had some friends, dads, who I looked up to, that's what they were. They were part of the local 100 here in Dallas, Texas. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to kind of follow in those footsteps. I really didn't have many options outside of that. And so my first job was actually at DFW Airport, and this is what I thought plumbing was about, and this is what I wanted to get into. We were working for a company called Burden Brothers, and we were doing the Hyatt Hotel, and we were doing the basement. They're like, hey, we have some pipes that are out of the wall. We're going to need you to go in there, and we're going to need to relocate those. And so, of course, I was a PAT coming up through the apprenticeship, and I jackhammered, and I did some more jackhammering. And I was like, all right, I could do this, right? It's no big deal. We were working, I think at one point we were working like 4 10s and an 8. And then we started doing Saturday mornings, right? So then we were working 6 10s. And it's like, you know what? I don't know if this is what I thought plumbing was. And so in the back of my mind, when I grew up, I always had a passion for I wanted to do something with blueprint creation. I always thought that was architecture. But I have zero creativity, right? And I realized that pretty quickly. And so I wanted to go to college to do video game design. And it's what I wanted to do. So I was like, I'll just keep working the plumbing trade, and then I'll, go to college, and eventually we'll part ways. I had no idea that something called BIM even existed in the company that I was working for. And that's kind of where I started, really. And that's what made me decide, this isn't really what I wanted to do. Obviously, I'm going to put my time in and do what I need to do to get out of here. But I realized pretty quickly that that's not what I wanted to do.
Now, luckily, I got to work with you, and you were always a hard worker. What made you want to be, the best apprentice? What made you, when you were starting still in the field, what made you want to do good every day?
Yeah, I don't, thank you, by the way, for taking a liking to me, right?
Because you did good. You earned it.
Yeah, because let's say, for the listeners, you and I have known each other for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
About 20 years, right? I think our first project was, what was it, Medical City? Mm-hmm. Was that the first project that we did?
Uh-huh. One that CAD messed up on, by the way.
It's always CAD. It's always CAD's fault. Always BIM's fault. But yeah, so I don't know, Roger. It's just something that my parents taught me. It's, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, please, and work hard for the things that you have. And it just was never an option. That's just not how I'm geared. And it's like, I want to be the best, right? And when the odds are against you, you really have no choice. But it's either you sink or swim. And for me, it was just, always had that, just want to work hard, drive. I'm always hungry for more, right? I think you can get complacent, and I think that's the worst thing that you can do in life is get complacent. And that's just not something that was an option for me.
And you work around a lot of plumbers, a lot of HVAC techs, a lot of electricians, a lot of tradespeople now.
Yeah.
How many of them do you see that once they get their license, they quit learning? They become a tool then. I don't mean that bad. They're a plumber. Pull me out of the box when you need me. Put me up when you're done. How many people do you see in the trades that do not learn anything once they get their license?
And I'll take that a step further. I am around a lot of tradesmen, and I hear a lot of complaining when their renewal comes up, right? And their continuous training comes up, and it's like, this is the worst 8 hours of the year for me.
And people like me and you live for training.
Yeah, right. I mean, I really do have a passion for teaching people and showing them the ropes, just like you did, right? You took me under your wing when I was young, and some people are geared that way and some people aren't. But for sure, I think that there's a plateau in learning for those guys for sure.
Tell everybody who you are and what you do. What do you do now? What is your job title?
Man, it's so unique. My current job title is I work for the Brandt companies. I'm the director of VDC Technologies, and that's a mouthful, right?
EDC Technologies.
VDC. Yeah. So
virtual design
and construction. Okay. Right. So it all started with BIM, which is building information modeling. And really, that was really driven towards architects. But that was just the first term that everybody kind of latched onto and held onto. So anything that's drawn virtually was just considered BIM at that point. But it certainly has slowly transitioned into VDC, which is virtual design and construction. And then there's even VDE, which is virtual design engineering as well. So whichever one that you want to do. Well, there's so much stuff that's entailed in VDC. And that's, you're actually starting with for me, it was a fabrication database, right? And so I tell people that really don't understand what we do, that I manage a virtual warehouse. So a Home Depot, if you will. When you go to Home Depot, you see a little 1/2-inch PVC elbow, let's just say NIPCO, Charlotte. Well, we need to make sure that we are modeling what we are purchasing and purchasing what we're fabricating and installing what we're fabricating, right? And so in order to do that, we manage a virtual library of fittings that are 3D dimensionally accurate. They have weight associated to them. They have price associated to them. They have MCA labor rates associated to them. And this is just plumbing and piping. There's also SMACNA labor that's associated to them, NECA labor if we're talking about electrical components. And so we put all that stuff in a tool palette and let our VDC team, which, by the way, our VDC team is compiled of a bunch of tradesmen, right? Because back in the early days of Brandt, we thought, well, we'll just go get all these smart kids out of college and we're going to teach them the plumbing trade. It doesn't work that way, right? But what we did find was successful is that you take these plumbers and these tradesmen and you can teach them computers, right? You can teach an old dog new tricks. And that was what was successful. And I think that's what separated us from our competition. So that's one aspect of it, is that we're managing up-to-date content. And I know as much as exposure that you have with manufacturers, they're always improving their products, right? They're daily. They're always coming up with the next best thing. So that's a full-time job for somebody to make sure that, because look, everything's tied. For example, everything is tied to that dimensional data, and we want to automate that workflow through the fabrication shop as much as possible. So when you tell me that the cup depth of an elbow is 3/4 of an inch, but now NIPCO has a new way to shorten that down and make it 1/2 inch. Well, now you just affected our cut list that we're sending to the automated pipe cutters that we have, right? We have Tiger stops, we have Watts pipe cutters, all types of plasma cutters, HGG machines. Well, we just want to send that a list, right? And we're batching and nesting together all of these. So it's important that we maintain and update those manufacturer-specific content as much as possible. So that's one aspect of it. The other is that we Revit, right? So Revit is the next big thing for us for VDC. And there's a lot with Revit, right? And it's a modeling software that allows, it's a big collaborative effort. Multiple trades could be in a centralized model. There's a lot of prep work that goes for that. It's on an open API. So I also manage a team of developers so let's say our VDC team says, man, this is an awesome tool, but what if I could do this, or what if I could do that? Well, I would have never thought that in a plumbing trade that you would have a group of developers that could write code in C# to make this software tailor it to what we need it to do. So I manage a team that does that as well. Also, part of technologies is that there's a lot of construction technology. A lot of construction, obviously, right? That's why I'm here. And we do a lot with our construction technology. And for us, it's flying drones, it's LiDAR scanning, it's photogrammetry. I'll even tell your listeners a story here. Back in the day, we'd always be on top of the deck before the concrete was poured, right? Well, you would have a tape measure and a string line and a can of paint. And
I remember those days.
I'm sure you do. We'd have a can of paint, and we'd go mark everything out on the deck. And I don't even know if you remember this story.
I started it.
Yeah. Well, I think the guy was from Beck, right? And he said, hey, I have 2 units in a closet that I'll sell you for $4,000. And so it was you, myself, and Jacob Fletcher. We bought this equipment, and you're talking about the big, radios, right? The big
Talking about a huge total station.
A huge total station, right? So now we bought 2 units for $4,000. So I think you'd be happy to know that we have over 30 of those now.
Amazing.
Yeah. We've done a really good job of that. So now it's not, the total robotic stations that we bought from Beck at that time, they work off the line of sight. Well, now they have GPS units, right? And you can have multiple rovers on a single base. The technology's phenomenal. But that's what we're using.
And I had to twist arms back then just to get us to get those 2. And I'm like, guys, look, I saw something happen literally we were on a job, and, he didn't say it. We're talking to John Trammell today.
Oh, sorry about that.
Sorry. Skip that part. Yeah. But the neat thing about it is we were on a project. I was on a project, the Radio Shack Riverfront campus in Fort Worth, and we were adding on to another building. They needed a drain or something. There were no batter boards up. There was nothing up. It's like, I can't even tell y'all. And I was quality control manager. It's like, I cannot even tell y'all where to put that drain at. I just know that we've got to have one out there. So I went to Beck and talked to one of their engineers, and he says, well, let me grab my stuff and we'll go out there. And he grabs stuff, throws it on his shoulder. He comes out and he sets up this equipment, shoots a few points, puts a pin on the ground, says it goes right there. And I'm like, how do you know that? He said, I can pinpoint any point in any building, anywhere with this. And I saw that and I thought, man, that's the future of plumbing right there.
Yeah.
And I remember going back to Brandt saying, look, we need this. And they're like, no, we don't. I'm like, guys, look, this changes everything. We do not ever miss. You talked about jackhammering.
Mm-hmm. That's where you go.
It's gone.
It's gone right
you
there.
You put it where I tell you to put it, and we will never have a problem.
Yeah.
And I went to another company later, Beard, used that same technology to lay out, I think, 3,000 points at Great Wolf Lodge.
Yeah.
Underground water park, indoor water park. Laid out, I believe, 3,000 points. There were 2 wrong, and it was because the pool company said, no, we want to move this. We want to. It's like, guys, that's not where it goes. They're like, trust me, we build this all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those were the only 2 wrong.
Great story. And it has completely revolutionized the way that we do business and construction. And at one point, it was just like, I just want penetrations, right? So anywhere that, I have pipe penetrating the concrete. Now we do every support, right? So now we're actually putting bangers in, right? And we have a crew that's going around, and you're talking thousands of points. Mm-hmm. And there's a huge process that goes into it. There's a dedicated team that handles the office work and the field work for us as well. I'm very proud of that. It's almost a business within itself now. You left me with that, right? And
it's not a bad thing.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. So yeah, certainly something that I'm proud of for sure that we do every day on every project. And now Brandt, it's like, where do I even start? It's not even an option anymore. Right. It's like, we have to have this.
There's not as many companies in the nation doing this as you think there would be. There's becoming more.
Mind blowing, right? Because if you think about it, it's reducing risk as well.
And labor and everything else.
Yes, because think about that. If you go back the old way that we used to do it, right? You'd have to wait for the pandex you'd have to wait for the concrete to be set, right? And then they come rip the pandex. You couldn't even get access to the floor that you're in, right? Yep. Well, then you'd have your exposed columns. You have a clean floor. Well, then what you would do is you'd have to go lay out from the columns. walls, right?
Try to hit center of the column.
Yes, right? Because I don't know if you know this or not, or they don't pour concrete very straight, right? It's
I know that.
It's not as straight as this table is,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so then you'd have to go lay it out on the floor. Then you'd have to go pop your little X's for where and you have the little laser bulb that would shoot up, right? And then the biggest risk that we have are eye injuries, and it's just dust, right? Getting concrete particles in your eyes. So then it was like, okay, well, you got to be on a ladder. You got to be wearing safety glasses. You got to be wearing goggles, and you have to wear a face shield. I don't know if you noticed or not in Texas, it's 111 degrees outside, right?
Yeah, on a good day.
In the shade.
Yeah.
In the shade.
I climbed in my truck the other day, started my truck, it said it was 131 degrees.
Isn't it ridiculous?
I kid you not. And don't get me wrong, I get it. That's the radiant heat inside the truck. There's a lot of things involved.
Yeah.
It doesn't get to be 131 here. It feels like it, though, and it did that day.
Yeah.
Now, let me back up a minute, though. You got into plumbing.
Yes, sir.
2003. Did you even know that this was an opportunity when you walked in?
No idea.
When you walked in to be a plumber, where did you think you ended up? Where did you think your life was headed?
I looked at people above me like yourself. Like at the time I didn't, you step through the progression, right? It's you go through your apprenticeship, you want to be a journeyman, then you're a foreman, then you're a general superintendent. And that's kind of the career ladder that I thought was in front of me. I had no idea. And so if you have young listeners listening to this today, plumbing can be so much more. People think of plumbing and they instantly think of toilets.
But not just plumbing.
Yeah.
HVAC, electrical. I'm plumber.
I say plumber. Yeah, but you know what I mean. Trades.
Yeah,
right?
But I want people to hear that.
Yeah.
They could walk in tomorrow to be an electrician and end up where you're at.
Absolutely. And I will say, just before we move on from that, is that we don't treat any trade differently. I came up through the pipe fitters and plumbing trade, but we treat plumbers and pipe fitters. We have the same processes for electrical. We have some cutting edge technology in our sheet metal shop. I mean, we're producing 4 or 5 million pounds of duct work a year. We're fabricating everything. So it's really bringing things out of the field and bringing it into a controlled environment in our fabrication shop, because the biggest risk that we have on site is labor. And
the biggest risk any company has, to be honest. It's the unknown number.
Unknown number, right? Yes, sir. So
let's go back, because I remember when you wanted to learn AUTO-CAD.
Yeah.
And, me and you talk, you're like, man, look, I want to learn this stuff. And I even went to my higher ups at the time and said, man, look, we got a great guy out in the field. We ought to find a way to help him with school, do this and do this. And they're like, yeah, we're not doing all that.
Yeah.
And you already left.
Mm-hmm.
And went and paid for school yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
And did you work while you were doing that?
Yeah, I never stopped. So I've been working. I know I probably skipped over your total introduction of myself.
You're good.
Yeah,
no,
you got me excited.
I
yeah.
like
So
this.
no, I've worked for the company for 20 years. So you and I parted ways at the Brandt. I think I went to some job in Mansfield. I don't know where you went after Medical City.
No,
you kept me on there as long as possible. Appreciate that. But no, I haven't left. 20 years going into the company.
So what made you realize either the potential or understand the value that you could bring? Because look, I talk to people all the time about, look, never stop learning. What made you, as a young apprentice, say, look, I'm going to pay for my own school. You dropped out of the apprentice training program.
I did, and there's a story to tell about that.
Pissed off a lot of people by doing that.
I did, okay. For sure.
But I understand.
And because one of my friend's dad was actually a pretty high up in the union at the time, right? So it's just there is a little bit of portrayal there that people think that it's not my intent. It wasn't my intention, right? I just wanted to better myself.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there are a lot of people that, and rightfully so. You and I talked about this. The local puts a lot of food on the table for a lot of families, right?
Do.
And it's not my place to come in here and try and mess with that.
So something I learned later, because I became an instructor in Local 100. Mm-hmm. And I remember going to the very first instructor training program for me up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was in Ypsilanti, went to Washtenaw Community College. And I remember the most impressive group there was Local 1. Plumbers out of New York City.
Is that New York? Okay. I think it's Chicago or New York. So
The most impressive. Okay. A lot of instructors show up for the party week.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to drink a lot. They're going to hang out a lot. They're going to BS a lot. Local one showed up dressed the same every day. They walked in class. You could tell there was no drinking involved. These guys are like, look, we're going to bed at 8 o'clock. We got things to learn tomorrow. Showed up the next morning. But I was talking to one of the instructors, a guy named John Cullen, out of local one, not 100. And we were talking about their students. And when they turn out a class, at the time, I think he had told me they'll pick the top 3 or 4 and say, would you like to go to NYU and learn AutoCAD? We will pay your way while you have a job. Dude, what a way for the union to grow through CAD and BIM and VR and everything else. And I thought about you. I'm like, oh my God, I know somebody that would have been phenomenal at that. And all they had to do is the local say, look, that's what you want to do. Fine. Finish the program, become the plumber.
Yeah.
Know what you're doing. Then we'll pay for your way to go through NYU.
Yeah.
And you can do what you want to do.
Well, breaking news, that opportunity did not exist for me at that time.
And it still doesn't at local 100. Don't mean it bad.
No, it doesn't.
It's not the way they do things.
Yeah. And, like I said, I have a passion for teaching. And so I did step in and I was teaching some CAD classes either last year or the year before. Time runs together pretty quickly.
Through Brandt? Or
so no, it was through the local. It was, no
Right.
association to the company. It's just like, hey, just step in and try and teach them. And it's like, I know there's a lack of resources for hardware, but look around the room. It takes an investment in hardware to do things correctly.
Man, and only if you want to do it right.
Only if you want to do it right. Well, this is very impressive, and so I know you get it right.
I do,
and so I do feel like there needs to be improvement in certain areas for sure, and not just here. I mean,
it's worldwide.
Yes,
it is.
Yeah.
And I get people reach out to me all the time. Say, look, I want to learn plumbing. I want to come to the United States. Can I work for you? And it's because they see that I teach.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's huge. Did you enjoy being out in the field? Did you enjoy hauling pipe around, working in a trailer? You ran the Connex. You ordered materials. You did a lot for us.
I'd like to, for all the yard dogs out there, I please don't take this the wrong way. But I've literally held the lowest position in the company that you can hold. And I wouldn't change a thing because I just mentioned how it's like I'm managing a virtual warehouse, or I manage people that we manage a virtual warehouse. But my time spent as a yard dog being very green, unloading trucks. Like, I don't know if you remember, but like I used to be very OCD about everything. Everything was lined out, labeled.
Hey, Roger, these 2 fittings did not come in on this order.
And
Are you sure? Roger, I counted everything. I counted those twice. So yeah, I'm sure. Okay.
So being able to lay that out, it just everything happens for a reason. I'm a big believer in that, and I would not change a thing. That exposure is something that absolutely I would encourage anyone that is thinking about doing this to spend time in the field. Absolutely.
And I don't mean it's bad. Brandt didn't pay for your training to learn AutoCAD.
No.
But they've paid for a lot of training for you since then.
Absolutely.
Is that phenomenal or what? I mean, think about it, John. Not only do they give you a job and pay you all day, every day, and pay you well. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
You could probably walk in tomorrow and say, hey, there's something else I need to learn. They say, okay, go.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How good of a feeling is that?
It's good because the things that we did approach them about, we were strategic about it, and it worked. We had a plan, and it just wasn't us just shooting dice in the dark, right? It was actually, we needed it. There was a need for what we were doing, and we felt like we could be successful with it.
And that's how I felt with Total Stations. Yeah. The day I discovered it, I'm like, this changes the future. And plumbing companies don't even know about this yet.
Yeah.
And I knew no plumbing company. And I even asked those engineers, do y'all know of anybody doing this? They said no. And I saw, wait a minute. We make points, like you said, with tape measures and strings and every day. Man, what would it be like to just walk in with the machine and say, hey, and I've been on jobs where I think we mark 300 points in a day.
Yeah.
Back then with that big bulky Total Station.
Yeah.
And now you can probably be like, Roger, we mark 3,000 a day. It's easy.
Well, it's come a long way, but you're still subjected to the conditions. Labor. Yes. Right. And it's just like, hey, look, it's not an X-ray machine. I can't see through this rebar. You have people, overhead cranes flying, but in a clean deck, and you can shoot up to 500 points a day easily.
I love it.
It's amazing, right? And
it.
you know that we weren't doing that with the string and the tape measure.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. So
what'd you enjoy about being in the field?
people looking at different people's perspective of life, and how they approached it, and listening to their history. And usually it's very rare that you don't find a third or fourth generation plumber that it just runs through the family.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy waking up early. I enjoy actually being productive with my hands and being able to step away and be like, look, I developed a product here. And I think that's no different than, me transitioning inside the office. At the end of the day, we have a product that we could be proud of. And so I would say that those are probably the most things that I enjoy being in the field. Just the amount of exposure.
Yeah, you started off a while ago, said, I wanted to learn CAD, but I'm not creative.
Yeah. So
you've created more than you can imagine.
Yes. I would say creative from an architecture perspective, right? Like
John, you've pretty much built a digital Home Depot.
Yeah, I like to be humble, man. And I think that you need to be humble in this industry if you want to stay hungry and you want to keep moving forward, right? Because I don't want to be happy with what we've done. Like, I want to keep. You always have to celebrate the small victories, right? I think that's very important. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself crazy. But yeah, I really meant by artistic, as far as being able to sit down and design you a set of blueprints and the design of architecture of a building.
I think you could do that now. I mean, I really, and I'm just telling you because you're not giving yourself enough credit for what you have built.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of creativity. And you know what? If somebody could see the whole thing, they say, okay, this is more artistic than you think.
Yeah.
Because it's all got to tie together.
For sure.
So I like that. We worked together when you were in the field, but then we also worked together later when you were in the office.
Yeah.
Got to spend time, I was doing total station, so I needed CAD and BIM to do a lot of things for me.
Mm-hmm.
You moved up very quick. What does it take to be the best?
Don't take this the wrong way. There's a little bit of luck involved in it, right?
No, I don't disagree with that.
For sure. It's like you could be the best of the best, but if you have roadblocks in your way and you don't have a good career path laid out in front of you, and you don't have a company that believes in your contributions, you may not see that advancement as quick as you would like it. I would say that one thing, that just the amount of exposure, like I was talking about being in the field, we're part of a peer group where it's just 9 of the best mechanical design build firms across the country. And to be able to see how they are leveraging technology and what we were doing versus what we're not doing was huge for us, right? Because the part of the being part of the peer group is there was a no compete clause, right? So there was nobody in the state of Texas that was doing. So we could go look at the way things were happening in Chicago and be like, we were just cherry picking ideas, and they were doing the same from us too. Don't think that we didn't have.
I went up to Fond du Lac. With one of our peer groups.
That's probably the most beautiful place I've ever.
I love their facility. You fly into Milwaukee, you drive north. Man, when I flew there, they were literally having a party the night that I arrived, and they invited me down. So I show up and Uber down there, get a taxi. I guess I got a taxi. There wasn't Uber back then. And I'm walking over like piles of snow that have been scraped off the street and walking this bar. And man, they're just talking about business. And it's like, man, what an amazing group of people.
Yeah.
And we had those places at the time all around the country.
Yeah.
And you can learn so many things from people that have already been there and done that.
I think, remaining humble and not going to these places that you have an opportunity, just a wealth of knowledge, just sitting around a table like this and just bouncing ideas off of each other. And sometimes it's just like, well, what issues are you facing? Well, I'm facing something similar. It's like, well, let's whiteboard this out together right now. We could come up with the solution, and we could lay the foundation for something that could be substantial for years to come. And so, been a part of a lot of those conversations, and just the amount of exposure and opportunities. Just been very thankful for it, for sure.
Is there anything you learned along the way? Any certain courses? Any books you read, anything that just kind of woke you up, made you say, wow, you know what? This is a whole new mindset.
Through certain times in my life, it was more focused on how do I make this software better? Well, then as you get older, it's like, well, how do I build a better team, right? And so you start looking at some leadership books, and then you start, and as you get older and progress, that's a good question. I probably need to do some thinking on that one. We may need to come back to that one.
A lot of tradespeople, like I said, they get in the trade, and I remember I got in to become a plumber.
Mm-hmm.
I knew nothing about new construction and service, remodel, residential, commercial, industrial, union, non-union. I just got in to become a plumber. That was it.
Yeah.
I knew about none of that. Now I think with the internet, people know more about all those little deals today. And I've got deals over on my other YouTube channel where I teach people the difference in residential and commercial, construction and new service, or new construction and service, and then the union and non-union. And there's good and bad about both of them. And I think it's neat because I put that together so people could understand that there's opportunities there that you might not even be aware of yet. And that's why I was really excited about getting you in here today, because you've seen those opportunities, realized a lot of those opportunities, and grown with them. I love the fact that everything we learn too is not about how to do our job. Everything I study is not plumbing.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff I study nowadays isn't plumbing.
Yeah, that's what I was. It's hard, right? Because and then I start learning. I'm like, well, maybe I could use that knowledge in my personal life as well, right? So
amen.
It's
that
just,
is huge.
It's not all just career driven. Back to your original question, I would just say that a lot of the things that you learn and we learn is it's not taught in a book or in a classroom. It's like actual hands-on. In the field or in your day-to-day job. Like I learned more, I learned more at my company and had more exposure. Cause like you said, I got in here, a plumber, I didn't know any of this existed. I had no idea about any of this stuff. Well, and I'm using my company, Brandt. Brandt taught me that, and they taught me a lot of things. And so a lot of things that I learned have been hands-on in the day-to-day.
Your career path has changed.
It has.
It's still CAD. Basically.
Yeah. Sort of. There's
a computer involved.
There's a computer involved.
How has it changed and progressed from, do you remember what it was like the first day you walked into the office? They said, you're going to learn CAD now. You're not in the field anymore.
Which is awesome, by the way. I have a funny story. I don't know if we have enough time for all of this. Because back when we were talking about, people didn't like my decision to go away from the local, and I get it. I went and talked to Ronnie Schreiber at the time. I think you know him.
President of the company. Love that man. Vice president at the time.
Rest in peace, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, there's a plaque on the wall. Ronnie had that exact same plaque in his office.
Really?
What it takes to be number one. Okay. And I used to love sitting in his office and looking at that. So you can take a picture of that and show it to Scott. He'll say, yeah, I remember that. Matter of fact, Scott may have it now.
Yeah, I'll have to go check and see. I'll check on Monday when I go in there. So I told him, I'm the one that went to him and said, look, man, this just isn't what I thought it was. I want to continue to work for Brandt, but I want to continue to go to college. And so I'm going to pull my name out of, I don't want to go to apprenticeship school anymore. And he said, all right, you're going to be the first person I fire. And I'm like, well, that hurt. But he goes, look, man, you're taking away opportunity for other people that do want to learn the trade. You're taking that away from them. And he said, and it's only fair that you're the first person I fire. So like, well, you know what? I'm going to work so hard that you're going to regret that. And so we were at, I think it was Mansfield at the time. This was after we had Medical City. Mm-hmm. And I was running around. I had a radio and stuff. And they said, hey, Ronnie Schreiber didn't come to job sites, right? Unless there's problems or there's problems. And
he came to talk to me out at Fidelity after I first started. I'd been there about 3 weeks. Go ahead. Yeah, and so it's like when you have the president of operations walking around your job site, it's like people are calling each other on the radios, like make sure everything's picked up. Oh, yeah. It's a big deal. No, nobody be sleeping in the Connex. Nobody's here. Yeah, so you would know, right? You just have scouts up on the 10th floor, just like Brandt truck pulling in. I know. 3:00. I got a call on the radio that said, hey, Ronnie Schreiber's here. You need to go put your radios up and lock up the connexes. And I was like, no, that's not happening like this. And so, man, I was dumb. I don't know how young I was, but
It's like, well, not today. So I just packed everything up and I left like an idiot, right? I look back and like, what an idiot. And so I come back to work like nothing happened the next day. And I got another call on the radio that said, hey, Ronnie Schreiber's in the office and you need to come to the office immediately. And I'm like, all right, well, it was nice, guys. I
enjoyed it, guys.
Enjoyed.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Like, yeah, here's my number. Y'all call me. And I thought this was it. And I walked into the office and I thought I was about to get scolded because I bailed yesterday like a kid. And he said, hey, are you still going to college to do video game design? I said, yes, sir. He goes, would you be interested in coming into the office and helping us start our CAD department? Was just now getting started. And it was the biggest relief ever. And I said, absolutely. And so I did spend time in the field, probably not as much time as I wanted to spend in the field, but how could I pass up an opportunity to move into it?
Not as much time as you wanted, because you wanted in the office. You understood that.
I did.
You probably could have learned more spending more time in the field.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. But I felt it was important, right? I mean, perception is a big deal, and you want to earn the respect of the people that you're working with, your peers, and you don't want them to look at you a certain type of way and that things were handed to you. You know, and I do feel, honestly, let's just be real, that if I didn't know some of the people that I knew, that my friends' dads growing up, and they had big roles in the company at the time too. I'm pretty sure that call would have been a lot different. Ronnie would have called me and fired me. I bet I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity, because let's just be real. There was no reason why they should have reached out to a 22-year-old kid, 21-year-old kid, and said, "Hey, you want this opportunity."
And I'm going to tell you different. I'm going to tell you, I think that you earned it because of your attitude when you met him.
Yeah.
Hey, okay, I'm going to outwork everybody else, and you'll regret that decision. But he also knew by your conversation that you were learning new things.
Yes, sir.
You switched from gaming to CAD. And started
No
learning
idea.
to draw, I think, electrical lines. Isn't that what you started with?
Yeah, we started doing some civil stuff right off the bat, and just came in like at the beginning. Just talk about the evolution of my career, the evolution of the BIM department in general. I remember having conversations with the IT director at the time, and he could not understand for the life of him why our CAD computers needed 4 gig of RAM.
Yeah. Why do you need a bigger, stronger, faster computer, John? Nobody else gets them.
Yeah, 4 gig of RAM. So I have a computer that sits in my corner, has 256 gig of RAM in it right now, and it's still not enough, right? It just is still not for what we do. So, but yeah, so I did move in and just kind of just started doing some little bitty things, right? And then just opportunity after opportunity. We were just learning backgrounds, and at the time, if our field was happy, can you produce a shop drawing that just has a dimension on it? Like just a dimension.
I used to come in and talk to you about those. Say, hey, look, you've got this information. Why can't you just press the button?
Yeah.
Tell me how far it is from here to here. Take a lot of the guesswork out.
Yeah.
And we started doing shop drawings, stuff like that.
Just shop drawings,
Yes.
right? So just to be clear, there is no easy button. I'm going to stand up for all my...
Oh, you press one button, John.
So
You've been saying that same BS for years. And when I say BS, that's bull sewage. We're
bull
good.
sewage. Okay,
Bull sewage.
I got you. This is PG show.
Absolutely.
So my career went from just learning this and just, hey, create a 2D drawing to just, I was in there so early that, look, Navisworks is this thing that we use for coordination. So it's a big federated model, right, where you could do clash detection. It lets me know, hey, your plumbing line's running to the electrical. You have electrical running over. Yeah, you have water running through an electrical room. Your ductwork's running through columns. We had one computer in the aisle that just had that one seat of software, and we used to fight over it. All right, and it came like you used to get your
a dongle.
Yeah,
You're holding your hand up. You used to get a dongle.
Yeah, right. And that's where that one license was. But now, man, to see that we have hundreds of those, and it's just a standard issue on a computer. Everybody gets that by default now. It's just cool to see it progress from something like to where it was a 2D drawing to now we're talking about full blown 3D coordination. And then at the time, we weren't even spooling yet. So you came into me when we were doing 2D and you dropped, hey, look, we have Carlson software that it was a surveying software that's like, how do we extract points from this to full 3D coordination? So it's like, okay, well, now we have these. We're pretty confident. Like, how can we spool this? How do we run this through the fabrication shop? So I was there for our first spool sheet that we ever created. I look, for the life of me, the very first northern eastern coordinates that we received.
Oh God!
It was on a little sticky note from a GC, and it was an elephant, and I'll never forget it. And I said, you know what, I'm never gonna lose this, and I lost it.
Oh,
I was gonna bring it for the show and just be like, it was history.
Yeah.
So again, to do that, and then it's like, well, people leave. They're just opportunities for them, and it was just an evolving door for managers and just tradesmen. And look, it's just next man up mentality, and it's like I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do that. No idea. So, word of advice is I always say you can do it. And
I used to love that about you. And I was thinking about that a while ago because you're the guy who could always come to and say, John, look, I ain't never seen anything like this, but here's what I need. And it'd be like, oh man, yeah, we could do that. We could do that.
Yeah.
It's like, man, here's all I need. Okay. If you'll communicate with people around you, and this is something I was told when I first got in the union. I asked the guy who got me in, I said, do me a favor, if you could give me any advice, what would it be? He said, learn from your apprentices. He said, because they're learning to do new things that you aren't even aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. There's new, I tell everybody every day, new tools, new materials, new technology, and new equipment every day. Get up every day for 30 minutes to an hour, learn your trade, learn your niche, learn your industry. And if you do 30 minutes to an hour a day, in a year or two, you'll be in the top 5% of the nation in your industry. But then taking it and using it and saying, wait, we learned this and we learned this. How do we do this with it? How do we do this? And that's something, again, you're great at.
Yeah. The things that we do now are not what we intended to do. It was all an evolution of just like, well, yeah, and a lot of the team that I manage today is what if team is what we nickname ourselves, right? Because people like you come in, well, that's cool, but what if?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it possible? What if we couldn't? Well, yeah, I don't know.
Disney calls it yes and.
Oh, yes and.
We can do this, yes, and we could probably make it do this, and we can. You can't say yeah, but.
Yeah, but.
Yeah, I could do that, but Roger, that's going to take a lot of hours.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of hours for you saves me 100 hours in the field.
Yeah.
And people don't look at it that way.
Yes, sir.
Yes, but, or yes, and. Yes, I could do this. And every job we did this on would save us about 1,000 hours at a billable rate of, say, $100 an hour.
Yeah.
It's
a no-brainer.
It's $100,000 savings right there. Let's do it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people realizing little wins and efficiencies and throughout this entire process is what's kept us going. And it's what has me in my current role right now. And so back to your original question. So it did evolve from 2D to point extraction to 3D coordination to doing spooling to being like, hey, can you manage your first part? So I think it was the First Baptist Church at Love Field, off of Love Field's over there.
Okay.
Yeah. And I managed my first full-blown BIM project when I was 24 years old. And that's where I got my exposure to it. And then it started like, okay, well, can you do that? And can you really get our database to where we want? We want to be able to model it and give the client and be like, well, if you do it this way or you do it this way, this is how many man hours it's going to take you. This is how much money it's going to cost.
So now you're building things multiple ways.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple times.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And so then, really structuring our database the way that we want and then just being a go-to guy for everybody and then that's really like, well, I mean, it's kind of hard to do this by yourself. And then it's like, well, it's justified, right? Because it's like you said, if you hire one person and we pay that person X dollar amount, but you're saving the field 3X that amount, like we need to have these conversations and the proof is in the pudding for a lot of the things that we do. And so that's really what's led me to where we're at right now. And there was a stint there where I went and managed our, because at the time we didn't really have an industrial division. So now I got to take all of the commercial knowledge that we had with our database and go build all this high purity stainless steel diaphragm valves, all these different configurations. And we got the opportunity to put that, and man, I've got to do, and industrial is really, so I say I'm a plumber, but I have a good passion for industrial piping and it's just amazing some of the things that they can come up with. And back when I was talking about being a craftsman and being proud of your product at the end of the day, I really took a liking to the industrial side because you're talking about Mary Kay makeup, You're talking about Frito-Lay. You're talking about dog food facilities. Alcon over there in Fort Worth. Joe Maxey, he's like, man, they make liquid gold. They turn Fort Worth tap water into liquid gold. And just to see the amount of process engineering that goes through that, and the fact that we can run that through our fabrication shops is, man, it's awesome.
What's the best project you ever got to work on?
I would say back in the commercial. Can I divide it up, give you a commercial?
However you want to look at it. Absolutely.
So, big deal for us is design build. And there went through a phase there when I very first started in the BIM department where everything was a plan and spec, meaning that the owner went directly to a consultant, an engineering consultant firm. And they would work and they would suck up all the project schedule, coming up with the design that didn't work. And I think that's where we started getting introduced into design build. And we started saying, hey, look at the quality that we're getting from these consultant engineers, Mr. Owner. We could cut that out and we'll work directly with you. We have the engineers on staff to do this. And
some good ones too.
Some good ones still there. And so at the time it was Arnold Bacon and myself and Alex Basham. One of them was the Omni Hotel. And I remember literally sitting around tables and we were turning, you want to talk about some napkin sketches. We were literally designing this in pen and paper on some napkin and just turning it over. And that was really the very first design build project that I got to work on from the inception to installation, really. And so the Omni Hotel in Dallas is when
Have you stayed there yet?
I didn't get the opportunity to stay there.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
Yeah. I don't live too
I hadn't
far.
stayed there either. So
okay. Yeah.
I just think it's a beautiful hotel.
It is a beautiful hotel. It's really held its age. I would say piping wise, industrial piping. One that I really enjoyed working on, or didn't do so well, was the dog food manufacturing place in Arkansas, and how they build these frozen sludge of dog food that goes through all these magnet detectors, right? It's like making sure that there's no metal pieces in there, and these big swooping arms where they call them pig launchers, and they literally push this frozen sludge all across the different plant to drop it off it. That was pretty cool, for sure. But one that I really got to cut my teeth on was microchip manufacturing facility in New York.
And a lot of Texas companies worked on that.
A lot. That was Global Foundries up there.
We built a lot of chips down here in Texas with Texas Instruments.
We do, and actually working on a big project in Sherman right now, which is Texas Instruments. We just did TIR Fab, which is right here in Richardson.
Familiar with it?
Yeah.
I remember when they built it.
Yeah.
Randy worked out there a lot.
Yeah. We just got finished out there, and then we immediately went out there and rolled out to SM1, and it's called SM1 because it's part of SM1, 2, 3, and 4, and I think it's a $38 billion campus that's being built right now in Sherman, Texas. So
what's next for John?
Man, I don't know. I think, you think when you're young, it's like, I can't wait to retire. But then I think as you get older, it's like, man, I'm just now starting to do the things that I wanted in life. I can drive a car that I want. I can live comfortably. And it's like, well, this is where you start in your career. You start trying to generate wealth for yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I can see that, like, well, I did want to retire. It's maybe not the thing I want to do now. But so we were acquired in 2021 by a company called the Southland Industries. And they have no presence in the South. And so nobody's competing for their job, and we were aligned culturally so much that it just made sense, and they've treated the acquisition more as a merger, but really leaning on people like myself and others in the organization, and not just saying we acquired you,
right. You work for us, do what we say.
Yeah, do it. It's like, no. So Southland has been great, and so this makes us the largest design build firm in the entire country. And at the time when they made the announcement, it hurt me. I was just like, everything I've worked for up to this point, it's like just...
Right. Southland's going to come in and say, we got a John. We don't need you anymore.
We got a John. Yeah. And they're like, don't worry, there's plenty of career opportunities. We really want everybody to have, free to move about the cabin. It's just going to have so many more. And I was like, yeah, right, you know. But it was absolutely the truth. And so I have recently accepted a new position at Southland Industries to be director of their construction technologies and fabrication technologies. And so they have what they call AEC, which is their corporate support group. Basically, my what if team here in Dallas. And so I get to take 6 of my team members with me to the corporate world over there as well. So we're actually doing a true merger for that. And so
are you going to have to relocate?
No. Well, if it keeps being 110 degrees outside, it can make
that someplace where it's 80 and there's pina coladas on the beach or something like that. That would be nice.
But you know that just goes to show that technology now. I mean, we are working in. I'm not sure if you're familiar with VDI, which is a virtual desktop infrastructure, and you always hear it's in the cloud. It's in the cloud. Nobody knows what the heck that means, right?
There's a cloud up there
There's
somewhere.
A cloud. It
has
a lot of business, right? There's a lot of things.
I wish I owned the cloud.
Yeah. Apparently in Texas, there's a lot of things in the cloud, but there's no rain. For sure.
Yeah, not in a long time.
No. Just the advancement in technology has made it to where all I need is an internet connection. I have access to all the project server files. Autodesk is making a big push to have everything in the cloud. So being free to move about the cabin is more real today than it ever has been. As you have an internet connection, you could be as effective anywhere in the country as you could be from your home office. And so, so let's what's next. I don't know. I need to try this for a little while, but there's a lot of things that we need to do. I know that Southland is in the business of acquiring companies, and so I don't think it's going to stop with Brandt. There'll be more, and yeah, I think that can easily get me 5 or 10 years, and then we'll have more conversations. Maybe I can come back on your podcast, and
I'd love it. We don't even have to wait 5 or 10 years.
Okay, for sure.
So, what was the first company you worked for in the local 100?
Can I say that?
Burden
Brothers.
Okay.
Yeah, I work for Burden Brothers.
Okay, and you mentioned them a while ago. So
okay,
yeah. So let me ask you this: if you could go back right now and catch little JT as he's walking out the front door on the way to his first job with Burden Brothers, what would you tell him? If you could go back right now, knowing everything you know right now,
I would say trust your gut, because you're the epitome of this, is that you see an opportunity and you pounce on it. And there are things that are getting unveiled today that it's like, you were entrenched in that. You knew that was a problem and you had a solution. And it's like, there's companies that have been developed around that idea. And it's like, you could have done something about that a long time ago, but you didn't. And just to remain hungry, man. Yeah, that's it, man. Be patient. Patient. I would say that patience is it's a virtue, right? And not saying it's right or wrong, but there's a different generation coming up now that they lack a lot of patience. And it's like, I've been here for 3 months. Like, I need to sit next to the CEO, and it's like, hey. And you can't tell them anything without being like, the guy, get off my lawn, and you walk to work uphill in the snow both ways.
Both ways, you bet.
Yeah. And it's like, boomer this, boomer that. And it's so just remain patient and trust your gut. Cause there are a lot of things that I could have moved on that, but then again, I am a big believer in everything happens for a reason. And I am honest when I say I wouldn't have changed anything, man. It's been a long road to get here, but I wouldn't change anything.
It's funny you talk about I see something and I pounce on it. I remember having a conversation with Ronnie Schreiber one day, and he says, Roger, he said, you know what's wrong with you? When you see a problem, you want to fix it immediately.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
He said, Roger, we're a company with 10 vice presidents and 4 presidents and 2 owners and a lot of people between you and the vice presidents. When you see problems, you want to fix it immediately. And it's got to go through the processes and channels. It takes about 6 months. I said, Ronnie, when I see a problem and something is screwed up and it takes us 6 months to fix it, it costs us money.
Mm-hmm.
And he just looked at me like, wow. But that's the way I see it.
There is certainly some things that you have to get used to, because they use
They politely call it red tape. There's a lot of it you got to go through sometimes.
There's a lot of it, right? And it's like, look, we're a big organization. We're a big ship. We just can't turn on a dime like that. But I get it. But there are certain things that's just like, guys, I mean, come on. Look, it's all laid out right here in front of you.
It's easy to see.
It's easy to see.
Stevie Wonder can see this.
Can you say that? So
I did.
Okay, it's fine. But yeah, no, for real. That's that's where we're at.
So if anybody wanted to connect with you, learn more, I know you're not on social media. You are on LinkedIn.
I am on LinkedIn.
It's a good business place to be.
Yeah. I don't know if I probably should be more on social media. I think I need to do a better job. It's just, we didn't grow up with that, right?
Not at all.
Yeah. And I know you didn't. So there are no excuses for me. I think
any of us can learn it. I promise.
Yeah. I think so. But with my new position, I need to actually do a better job promoting myself. So hopefully I can give we just went through the domain merger. So my email account just changed again. So hopefully we can post that afterwards. I'd love to have, I could geek out and talk about construction technology for hours and hours. So I promise you, if there's a problem that your listeners have gone through or going through currently, it's an industry problem.
We've seen it somewhere.
Absolutely.
I guarantee you, it ain't the first time it ever happened.
Or I know a guy that knows a guy.
You bet.
That knows a guy. And so, yeah, I would love for him to reach out to me. Absolutely. I'd love to hear feedback on it, for sure.
So right now you can connect with him on LinkedIn, John Trammell.
Yep. Absolutely.
John, this has been great.
By the way, so thank you. Yes, sir.